Some of the basic features that anyone who has a DSLR camera should really try. Now, if you're a beginner or a hobbyist using DSLR camera, I think this video will help you a lot. Now, I know on YouTube there are a lot of videos that can show you many different manual configuration, manual settings, and some of you might be scared to use some of those features. For myself, I'm more of a hobbyist. I'm not an expert by any means, but I like taking pictures with DSLR. So I want to show you some of the features and functions that I think it's good to be familiar with. Let me show you. On this camera here you have the on-off button. Turn it this way and then you'll switch it on. Now there's a mode button here. Okay, now right now it's set to the auto mode, the green icon. The auto mode, what it does is that it will do everything automatically for you. It will set the shutter speed, it will set the exposure, white balance, flash if it needs it, it'll pop up the flash. It'll do everything automatically for you. And for some of you, maybe this is the mode that you always use, and if you're comfortable with that, that's fine, that's not a problem. But I think there are other features and functions that you should explore and try, because it's already built into this camera, and why not, you know, try to experiment a little bit more. Now, besides this auto mode, below that there is another auto mode. You see this icon with a slash across a flash symbol. This one here is also the auto mode, okay? But this auto mode will not have a flash. So if you're the type that like to use the auto mode, but say you're in school, concert or something that you don't want to use a flash, you can turn off the flash by switching to this mode. Now, depending on the camera you have, like this one here, there's different effects. Okay, you can do different effects by selecting the effects on this. Now, I'm not going to get into all the effects here, but the D5200, like this one here, does come with a lot of cool effects you can try, okay? There's also a lot of different scene modes. If you go to scene and rotate the dial, you got sunset, you have dusk to dawn, pet portrait, candlelight. So these are all pre-programmed settings in your camera for different scenes. So let's talk about the 4 different modes here. You see here the P, S, A, and M. These are more of the manual mode. It's not complete automatic, but like for example the P, the program auto, it's kind of like a semi-automatic. And I say that because in the P mode, it will actually set your aperture and shutter speed automatically. But you can override some of the settings like ISO setting. You can manually turn on the flash or not use a flash. So this P is good for a quick snapshot if you want to do a quick shot, but you don't really have time to set the aperture or shutter speed. Now the next one here is the S. That is the shutter priority mode. And when you put into this mode, what happens is that with this dial here, this thumb dial here, you will actually change the shutter speed. So depending on how fast you want the shutter to open and close, or how slow, you can actually manually set this. And you can use this for action shots. You can slow down the shutter if you want to, like slow down the motion of waterfall, give it a little bit blurry look to it. So that's where you want to use a shutter adjustment here. So there's a shutter priority. If I move this over to the next one, there's A. The A is the aperture priority. And what the aperture priority does is, again, I will turn the thumb wheel here. It will actually open and close the aperture of the lens. Now, if you open this all the way to the lowest number, what they call it f-stop, this is actually the biggest opening for the aperture of the lens. The next one over is the M, the manual mode. Now with the manual mode, you actually set the aperture and the shutter speed manually. So once you put it on the manual mode, if you turn the thumb wheel here, it will change the shutter speed. To change the aperture, you'll see that there is actually a button here with this little symbol. That's the aperture symbol. Press that, hold that down. Now if you turn it, it will adjust the aperture. So with the manual mode, that's how you set the shutter speed and aperture. So next to the aperture, you have an ISO number here. Now this is something that I think you need to get familiar with. It will help you a lot. Sometimes it can get you out of a jam if you're in a situation where there's not enough lights. And you can actually change the ISO. By changing the ISO, you're actually changing how bright that picture is going to be. So in the old days, you have film cameras where there's an ISO number. So if you have a film that is ISO, say 800, it requires less light compared to ISO 100. And the same situation here, where if you set this to a higher number, the picture will require less light. So if you look on the side of this camera, there's a function button. Now it's pre-programmed from the factory to allow you to set the ISO by using this button. And if you press it and hold it down, you'll see that the ISO display is highlighted. Turn the thumb wheel on here and you'll see the ISO number go up and down. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that as you bring the ISO number higher and higher, the noise and the graininess of the picture will also go up. So I recommend that you don't go higher than 6400 for most pictures. But if you're in a jam and you don't have a flash, or you're not allowed to use a flash indoor, you can use this ISO setting to get you the picture you want. Now, another thing about being in this mode, the manual, the aperture, the shutter, and the program auto, is that if you're in a dark room, the flash will not pop up automatically. So on this camera, there's actually a flash button here. Press that, it'll bring up the flash. Another button that is handy to know on this D5200 is this I button here. Okay, if you press the I, it will actually go into this setting here on the bottom of the screen, where you can scroll using the wheel here, and you can manually set different settings. And if you press the I again, you get out of it. For myself, I like to use the aperture priority mode. If you take a lot of portraits, people, animals, this is a great mode because it does give you that effect of blurring the background while your subject is in focus. And that's why I like to use the aperture priority along with setting the ISO on the function, using the function button on the side here. And of course, if you need the flash, just pop it open. Now, right now I'm on the A, the aperture priority mode. If you press this button and you look at the LCD screen, you'll see that the exposure is highlighted, and you can actually turn the thumb wheel left or right, and that will allow you to adjust the exposure on the picture. And where I would use this is if I come across a picture that it seems like it's not exposed very well, I can actually turn this up a bit more, or you can turn it down if you find that the picture is a little bright, too bright. Another feature of the D5200 is the live view. So you see a switch here where there's a marking here for LV, live view. What you want to do is flick the switch, and then you'll see the image that you're taking a picture of on the LCD. Press the button halfway and it'll focus. Also, if you were to move where the focusing area is, you can actually adjust where you want that to be. So let's say I want to focus on this Nikon word here. Press the button halfway and it'll focus on the Nikon. There's also a magnification button here. If you press the magnification button, and this is helpful if you're going to be using manual focus. So let me turn the manual focus mode, and then now I'm going to focus with the ring here, and I can adjust the focusing manually, so you can see clearly whether it's focused or not. And when you're done, you take a picture. So when you're done with your live view, just pull this lever down one more time. It'll go back to a regular screen. There's one more button I want to show you, and there's a button right here. This is for your shutter. If you press this button once, it will give you this display here with an option. So let's go to the high, and let's try a couple of shots. So it's on a high right now. I'm going to press a shutter down and hold down. And let's try the low shutter here. You can hear a difference. Now, if you wonder when is a good time to use a high shutter or a low shutter, you can use it for any shots, really. You can use it for portraits. Why? Because people's eyes blink, kids move around, and if you take pictures one after another, out of 5 pictures, let's say, there might be 2 that you got a good shot. So that's where that shutter mode can help you. And of course, it can be used for action scenes if you were taking pictures of a ball game or a racing car. So there's a couple of uses for that. I think that covers most of the features that I think is important for any DSLR users to know. I recommend that you take a lot of pictures, get very comfortable with all the modes and different buttons and different settings. But the ones I've highlighted here are features that I use on a regular basis. These features that I told you can really help you in getting that shot that you want. And of course, once you get familiar with all the different features, if you take a bad shot, you look at the picture, you'll know exactly what you need to change on the settings to make that picture turn out right. So after you get familiar with the features I talk about in this video, you can start playing with more advanced features like setting the white balance on the camera. You can even get yourself an external flash that you can put on the hot shoe here. You can even invest in prime lenses. So there are so many things you can do with these cameras these days.